Okay, today I want to roll back to verse 6 and read verse 7 too, because this all goes together in what God says about himself. Verse 6 says, Yahweh the Lord, the God of compassion and mercy, I am slow to anger and filled with unfailing love and faithfulness. I lavish unfailing love to 1,000 generations. I forgive iniquity, rebellion, and sin, but I do not excuse the guilty. I lay the sins of the parents upon their children and grandchildren. The entire family is affected, even children to the third and fourth generations. So here God is kind of saying things about himself, right? He says his name. He says he's the God of compassion and mercy. He talks about being slow to speak and slow to anger in all of these things. So God is full of compassion. He is full of mercy. This is who he is as part of his character. He is slow to anger, right? What a good thing that is. If God was not slow to anger, how much trouble would we all be in? But he is long-suffering, as some of the translations will say here. I mean, we all know what it's like to deal with a person with a short fuse who gets offended or outraged so easily, right? You know, we have certain names for those people in our culture now, right? You know, people talk about Karens and stuff like that. You know, people that just get fired up and lose their mind over something in a line at McDonald's. That's not God. God is so patient and long-suffering and merciful and shows us grace. And I don't deserve grace, right? Grace is that unmerited favor. I don't deserve it, right? So this is God's character. It's not that in the Old, and some people try to paint this picture. It's not that in the Old Testament there's this bad, vengeful God, and in the New Testament this loving God. No, he's the same. He's the same in both. He's the same in both. We see God's judgment in the New Testament. We see God's love and compassion in the New Testament. We see God's judgment in the Old Testament. We see God's love and compassion in the Old Testament. We see it in both places. Now it says he does not excuse the guilty. So if you reject his love, you reject his forgiveness, you reject his ways, there are repercussions to that. So, and it's a continuance that happens. And that's what that thing about generation, that's a common Semitic way to say that it continues. That when you reject him and you refuse, then that judgment continues. So God here is showing who he is. He is a God of love and compassion. But when you reject him, when you turn your back on him, when you don't accept the forgiveness that he offers, when you decide to go your own way, God allows that. He lets you do that, but you face the judgment for it. We'll keep talking about God's conversation with Moses tomorrow.